My first memory was when I was a child, and I would say from the family point of view, my grandfather made every year a big party for the family once a year. And maybe I was 3 years old, I can remember that. There was, in snow, we had a sled and a horse, and we were sitting and driving around and around, like as a child, I can remember this very vividly. Actually, let me introduce myself. My name is Shimon. Actually, the Hebrew name is Nusen Shimon. My father's name was Elimelech. My mother's name was Prinza. I had an oldest brother, which was Yosef, his name. He was already married, and he had a child already. I was an uncle when I was 8 years old. Then my sister, Berger, was the second. Then Malka, Esther, and then I came, and I had a brother by the name of Moshe. He was 4 years younger than me. My father comes from a family of 9. There were 4 men and 5 women. One of the women was Berger. Berger was her name, which is your great-grandmother. And her husband was Itamar, Gutterman. Extremely nice person, quiet, but when he spoke, it was like this wisdom of Solomon. He listened more than he talked. And we called it Ciocia Gutterman. Ciocia is in Polish an aunt. And Ciocia Feigl, she was a tall woman. They had 1 son and 5 daughters. So you can imagine, the son always used to come out. He had a motorcycle, and he come to Kalle, and he took me sometimes on the back of the motorcycle. Our family was a very close family. Me especially, I came after 3 girls, so I was pampered as a child more than anybody else. But I didn't know at that time. I thought this is a normal procedure to be pampered. But I remember once we had a cousin, Rose Alperin. Her husband was an editor in Hind in Paris. And she used to come. I was blonde, and she gave me a zloty so she can cut a few hairs of mine. Little incidents like that I remember. When my grandfather lived, there were more coming together than after he died. I remember the whole family was sitting over there in Kali, the children, the daughters and the sons, in my grandfather's apartment. My grandfather was laying on the floor, and there was not children, more a little bit older, saying Tillim there on one side sitting, and there was a candle in front of his head. And when Ciocia Gutterman and Vilchik, they came, they fell on the floor. And I remember that, and of course he was covered up and so on. Certain pictures lay in your mind, and you don't erase them. It came Shabbos nachts, Saturday after Shabbos, was always a full house. My father played the fiddle, one of my sisters played the fiddle, and sometimes Nathan Guterman also played the fiddle. And we used to come and we had to dance and sing like it was like a wedding, you know, always freilich with the family, you know. And one of my sisters was dancing like a Cossack on the table, you know, as a child, I remember, because she was also the one who was riding on the horse in Cali. She loved to ride the horse there. And it was a tremendous open house. There also, I remember things that I don't remember a Shabbos, a meal, that my father did not bring along a poor person to sit at the table. My father never sit at the head of the table. He always sit in the middle of the table. And that head of the table was also for the orer, who he brought in. That's where he was sitting. And he always was given the first portion, not my father, for my mother. That's how it was him, because I remember my father was not a big eater. I remember he said, "You are what you eat." So I once asked him, "What the matter, I eat the chicken, that we are chicken?" He said, "No, you will remember when you understand what I'm telling you. You are what you eat." He was always left on the plate. He never finished what he was given. He was not a big eater. And I remember sometimes the people, not only did they come to eat, they were put a mattress in the hallway and they were sleeping by us. And sometimes they didn't smell so good because of the hygiene. They didn't have the opportunity, whatever. So if one of the children made a face, never mind say something, he had to go away from the table. It was not to embarrass the person. So I was told also, my father was a person who would give his shirt off his back for others. And we lived a very, very happy life, a very close life and respectful. And my brother started to grow up, we become more friendly, and I played, of course, when I had the opportunity to play with other children, I played. We played in buttons against the wall, we played with football, or we played croquet. At that time it was modern, you know, to play was... And then, unfortunately, that was until the age of 12. When the war broke out, I remember my father and me, we took a box from tea, which is a wooden box, a small square wooden box with silver foil inside, you know, like aluminum. And we took the Torah from the Beis Medrash and we put this in and we closed it with the cover and we put it on the attic to hide it, because... And also in 1938, when we called it the Sheres HaPleita, when they threw out the Jews from Germany, they came to the villa over there, and every room was occupied by other people. So I know that. And I remember one incident that a person, you know why I remember that? A boy about 16, and he was not circumcised, he was not gemalet, and he let himself, the father took him to be mallet after when they were thrown out. Things that I heard. There was a thing that, and I remember the boy, the way he looked, because, and the father. This I remember they were talking that the father wants his son to have a circumcision. Gemalet, he came, it was not Gemalet, because he changed his attitude from being a Reformed Jew or whatever, maybe not mentioned even that there was a Jew, but the Germans made him a Jew, reminded him. When they came in, it was Friday, and on Sunday, I saw a Jew with a beard and a talis and tefillin on a truck parade that took him throughout the city to humiliate the Jews. This was my first impression on them. And then they used to grab Jews and take them to work and whatever it is from the street. They put such a fear in you that you became like nothing. You had no right to say nothing. You had no right to protest. Or it's very hard to imagine people who have not lived that era to understand the way through organized crime. It's not one did it and so on. It was a system to put in fear slowly and slowly, more and more, with the every day different orders on the wall were glued on for the Jews. You cannot do this, and you have to be home by this time, and you cannot do this, and you can do that, and so on. So this I remember very vividly, that the Jews, you're not allowed to get together anymore in groups and so on. So I remember these things, so it's very hard to imagine how organized through organization to slow interchanging to the fear that you become unhuman, so to say. You have nothing to say, you have no right and no nothing. So, but the urge of survival is just like an animal, no different. So the next thing, where you get the next meal, but that time the food was not so rationed yet. The only time it started to get very rationed, it was in the ghetto. But a few months, it came in 39, and in February, March, they opened the ghetto by the first of the year and so on, and slowly liquidating all the Jews out from the ghetto. And they had all the names and where they live and so on. And I tell you, one fact that I saw in Washington, and I came to the Holocaust Museum. So on the 6th floor, they have the archives. I opened up the book from Lodge, and I looked on the Berger, all my family's names, when they were born, and where we lived. I was shocked, every one of them. So I just imagined everything so documented. It's in a system that I could not, it's very hard to comprehend from people who have not lived through that. But trust me, what I tell you, every word is true. I don't have any imaginations on that, because it is impossible for me, whether it is an hour or two or a day, to go in details of every day. But every day things happen. Every day we had new laws and new things that we were worrying about and so on. And of course, as a family, we wanted to be together as much as we can. So they pushed us in, liquidated Lodge, and we went for this city, we went to the ghetto. And both sides of the street, where the street car was going, they built bridges from wood from one side to the other for us to go. And the bottom, the street covers going, and the non-Jews were allowed to walk over there because the sidewalk was taken, and it's only the bridges was there. And I remember exactly, by the street Koshchelna Lodge was the bridge where I went to work every day to the other side. I was born before Pesach, a week before Pesach. So my father got together a minion from friends, and I had bar mitzvah in the Roger Geta, in the room where we didn't have a Torah, of course, but from a Chumash, and we read the Berger. We all had to go to work, including my brother, who was 7 years old at that time, and so on, or 8. Because if you did not go to work, you only got the slip to get bread when you did go to work. So everybody went to work. My father, for instance, was working as a nightman. My mother was working in a laundry over there somewhere washing. My 2 sisters were working by sewing something in a factory. I don't even know what my brother did. I knew he went in the morning someplace to work. I worked for making galvanized tires in a factory. I know one occasion that I saw my father cry. That was one time. They asked for volunteers to pull a bowl, big bowl, with 4 wheels, and 6 guys of us pulled, pumping out from toilets and then pulling them to the field on empty out and come back. They gave double rations for that. And I did not want to tell that I am doing that, to anybody in the family. I just went to work, and everybody went to work. But my father found out, and he saw me. He started to cry. And I promised him I won't go back to that kind of. I was pulling that wagon with the waste and so on when I was in the ghetto. This in 1942 it was, I think, 41, 42, anyway. 41 maybe. Yeah, about a year after I was there and so on. So this I can say, I saw my father cry with this, and I had to finish the day, of course, because we were 6 who were pulling. 6 boys were pulling that wagon. So I couldn't get away. There was no way. While he saw me, I wanted to hide, but there was no way I could undo the things life had to go on, that was one time which I really saw my father cry. And then my father got sick, and he was in bed for quite a few weeks in the room, and his feet got swollen from hunger. He didn't have the vitamins and the minerals and so on. I remember one incident that my mother, they were giving out meat from horse meat in the ghetto. And my mother brought a piece and cooked for him. And when he heard, because he understood, he threw that plate to the floor, and he didn't want to touch it. And he died from hunger. The Friday before he died, which he died on Saturday, He had, Shimon, please go to this and this person and buy me a glass of wine. I went, I brought him a little wine in a cup, and he made Kiddush Friday night in Bed Lane. We just drank, and that night, in the morning, he was dead. So that Saturday night, the Chevra Kedisha came in that room and took him out of bed and put him on a board, I remember like now, and put him in white clothes and to wash the body up over there, whatever, and put him in white cloth. And it was until the morning, we took him to the cemetery, and that's how I know where I buried my father, right in the back of my grandfather's grave, because there was laying my grandfather, Berger. Berger was my grandfather, my father's grandfather, and Berger was a brother of my grandfather, Berger. So there are three graves, one next to the other in Lodge, and in the back of it, my father's grave was. And when they liquidated the ghetto, my older sister, her husband, was taken to work before. So we were my three sisters, my brother, and my mother. And of course, we were pushed into the wagons, those cattle wagons. We were together. And whatever they said, to take along clothes and whatever, we had two bags of hatchets, I don't remember. When we unloaded in Auschwitz, when we went out from the wagons, they immediately took the women on one side. My older sister got some mumps, or a sickness, a little bit, so she was sick. They took her right away to one side. My mother and two sisters were together because the sister that was sick was taken from them. I went with my brother, the youngest brother, because my oldest brother, I did not know when the ghetto closed, he was not with us. And I held my younger brother by my hand. And as we passed for where the point right or left, over there, the SS people. And as I heard later the name of Mengele, the doctor who was there, and I held my brother, and they literally pulled my brother away to the other side, and me, they put to another side. And that was the last time I saw my family. From Auschwitz, we were sent to labor camps, of course. The name was Schotterwerk, where they first came. And over there, we were breaking stones into smaller stones. From there, I went to Wirste-Giersthof. Was another camp. And over there, was working for a while. I was not there long, a few weeks. And then they sent me to Dernau. Dernau was a horror camp, absolutely horrible. I worked on a group, we were 12, and we walked, of course. I worked on where you take from a big wagon into a smaller one that went into the mountains. And in the mountains were ammunition factories. I worked a little bit there too for a couple of weeks, but then I was given the other job. And over there you stayed in water with really, it was terrible. I got the other job over there on the 12th, by the Umlauter Bahnhof. That means, Umlauter means from one to the other of German. Not Bahnhof, it is rails. The rails were here, we carried the bags into the smaller one, and whatever, boxes or bags, whatever, we think that they brought into the mountains. And there now. And at one time, we went, you know, it was dark when we went, and we came back because it was November, December, January, this type of months. My dress for warm was a cement bag that I cut out on top and wore it, you know, pulled the cement out and wore it on my body, and then my striped jacket and so on, and that kept me warm. So when I walked at time, we walked, the 12 of us, I jumped out and there was a heap, and I knew under the hip, you put in your hand, you can grab potatoes. I grabbed some potatoes, and by coming into the camp, they noticed over there, and they took the potatoes away from me. Well, it was a German, and then those who guarded the entrance to the camp. And at that time, you get condemned to death, because every second week there was a day that it was free, every second Sunday. And at that day, all those people with crimes, they used to hang. And it didn't matter too much at that point, because I didn't see any hope. You understand? So, you know, that's what happened, that's all. Listen, you get fearful, but it's, I cannot recall that I was so shocked to a point that I was shivering or anything. No. It was not maybe the time I did not get the rope on my head. So I don't know at that moment what would be the feeling. But I was standing still. I was a good worker. Whatever I did my best and so on. So they came, and the foreman asked where I was to the other people. How do I know? And somehow he came and he got me. He saved me from being hanged. He needed me to work. And then they liquidated, or didn't completely liquidated, those who they took out to walk, to go to Buchenwald and there was Dernau. Dernau is a town not far from Waldenburg, Berger, and Giersdorf in Eastern Silesia. In Eastern Silesia, and then the first day I could hardly walk. So two people next to me, friend, were already holding me up to the night. You know, in the beginning I walked, and then I started to him, and when he couldn't walk, they just killed on the way. You know, there were people who fell. But at that walk, one day, we came to a hole at night. And in the morning, always counting. And I jumped out. I didn't want it anymore. I figured, that's it, but I'm gonna sleep over there another day. They cannot hold me. I'm gonna fall anyway. So I jumped out, and I said to the German there, my Fuß is geschwollen, I can't walk anymore. He took two guys, and maybe 100 yards was another camp, Friedland. In Friedland, that was in the town of Friedland. A Jewish camp, maybe only about 500-600 people, that's all, a small camp. And they brought me there. I was sure this was the end, you know. We can walk. I saw what happened on the way. And they brought me in over there. Who do I meet there? I meet my cousin Mulek, Chaskel Radzina, Mulek Radzina. Chaskel Radzina was a cousin of Mulek. His father was also Melech, so was a friend of my father, the Melech Radzina. So we knew each other very well. It was Chaskel Radzina and his brother in Mulek. And one of them worked in the kitchen. So I got some extra food that they brought me back, and I was in the reformatory. There was still a reformatory where people, a few who was sick. You know, in that camp, I was there, I recuperated, and then I went to work with them too. And the night I was there, it was like February, I would say. And February was March, April there. And May 7 at night, the guards disappeared and we ran out from the camp into the mountain. It was right and practically very close to the city, to Friedland. And the next morning, the Russians were there. And at that time, people started to eat and they got dysentery, and a lot of them couldn't get up. The people, it was on the border of Czechoslovakia. Nachod was the city called, I remember like today. They took us, those who were very down and so on, and they emptied a hotel and they put us in over there, and I was there with Mulek Radzina, and they brought us back to light. They gave us small portions of food, you know, whatever, and they brought us back. After about a few weeks, we came to ourselves, and we started. First we took a wagon and a horse, and then we walked, we both of us, to get to lodge, to see if somebody is alive. I smuggled myself to Germany by the city of Coburg. That's not far from the border of Germany, Czechoslovakia, I believe. Maybe not Czechoslovakia. Anyway, I almost got shot in the night, but I was successful anyway. Obviously, I'm here. So I went to a city made Kronstadt. I was there a few days, and then I went. The post in Germany had a few seats in their truck that took passengers along, and I went to Kulmbach. In Kulmbach, there was already maybe 25, 30 Jews, and it was a Jewish, already so to say, they had a little Jewish community there. And that's where I met Rita's brother, Ephraim Adler, and his mother, and he had a brother already married who came from Russia. And Rita was born in Berlin, and they were chased to Poland. And in Poland, that part, they were taken to Russia. Russia took over that part of Poland, and they were sent to Siberia. The fact is, they worked, but they say they were treated the same as the Russians. So this, you can't complain. And they all came back to Germany. They were allocated to that town when they came back because they lived in Berlin and so on, so they had certain privileges. They could go wherever they wanted, and they figured they came to that town of. When I came, they were there already. So I met his brother, which was my age, and we became very good friends, Ephraim. And then he invited me to come to his home, which I met his mother and a brother. I used to come every time in very good meals. I fed at home. They made me feel at home. And slowly we started to court his sister, and Rita is Ephraim's sister, and we continued. It was, at that time, there was an announcement that they're looking for young men for the American Army, especially those who know Germans, who have pasts like myself or refugees and so on, to join the American Army, 500 men. And at that time, I really wanted to go to America. Or I met this Adler family, and they also wanted to go to America. So myself and Ephraim and Fedor, we joined the American Army in West Germany with the promise if we behave good, we will be able to get to America. They will give us good recommendation. And we were there for almost a year. Then became, of course, they were talking about a state of Israel, and that Israel will become a state in May at that time, and the Arabs did not say they won't let it happen, and they say if they will declare a state, they will invade it. So me and some other friends, who we joined all together, about 7 of us, volunteered, went to the commander and asked for a leave of absence to give us so we can go to Israel, at that time to Palestine, to help become a Jewish state. And he gave us, of course, the permission, and that's why I am today a Jewish war veteran in America. First, we took us to France, to Marseille, and from Marseille we got a small little boat that we thought, when we went on that boat, we thought that this boat would take us to a bigger boat. Sure enough, they said, no, this is the boat we're going to go to Israel. We got violent over there, the boat, and they chopped the rope. They didn't even take in the rope, and down we went. And that little boat was going like this. Unbelievable, especially by crate. We were 500 of us boys at that time. But when we came, the British were not there anymore. So we landed in Haifa, and then it took us to a course from Netanya, Bet-Lit it's called. And that's where we allocated, we were allocated to Tel Aviv, me and Ephraim. We always asked to be together because we were very close. But before we left, the day before we left, I took a picture with Rita. We become friendly already, and took a picture in Kulmbach with Rita by a tree. Why I'm telling you is the night before we left for Israel, or for Palestine, or that for Israel already, that we got engaged. They made a chagigah, and first of all, for us that we're leaving for Israel, and the second was that we got engaged. Didn't want to get married because my goal was to go to Israel in case something happened, I'm going to leave a widow. So we got engaged. We were very, very close already, both. We knew that's our future will be together. And we left to Marseille the next day. I have a small interruption in that, what I say about the tree. I never wanted to go to Germany, but 2 years ago, my wife persuaded me, and we went to Kulmbach, and we took a picture by the same tree after 65 years of marriage. at the same. The tree got a little bigger, and we got a little bit different faces, but the tree is still there, and so on. So this was our year. Now, in Israel, a certain thing happened that changed me. I mean, to such an extent of warmth. After we had the Imonim, and we learned, and they gave us a weekend chofish. We went to Tel Aviv. In Tel Aviv, Ephraim had two aunts. This was his mother's two sisters were in Israel already. One came in 33 and one came in 37, one family. So they got from Berlin, both of them. They went to Israel. And the Hachshara, whatever they call it, their family. So I came by the name of Berger, was the uncle, the sister of my mother-in-law, of Sabina Adler, Regina Adler, and Joseph Weisberger. They lived on Lessing 13 in 2 rooms. The kitchen was on the terrace. In one of the rooms, they had in both rooms, they made a factory for bags. So that was their living. And we came for the weekend, Friday, and so on. We were introduced. Friday night, we were allocated to go to a family in Tel Aviv, because soldiers were allocated when they had chofish to go to no hotels, no nothing, to families. And she says, no. They were there, their daughter, a grown-up lady, at that time she was a Kalamoit already, and a brother who worked as a toolmaker, therefore he was not in the army. At that time he was for the army working as a machinist. And the parents, Tante Regina and Uncle Joseph. She said, no, you're not going. They took the machines, they put it in the other room, everything from that room into the other, and put a mattress on the floor. But the boy was always sleeping there on the floor, but not the machines were there, the sewing machine. And they had their bed, the parents, and they did not let us go. That made me such a Russian that I feel like crying. I felt like I came into a family with open arms. I was not married yet. I was only a chatan with the future of marriage, but they accepted me with such open arms that still I want to cry the way I felt at that time that I have a home again. I just would like to introduce my darling Greta, who is my wife, which in coming March 27 will be 67 years that we are married. We have 3 wonderful children, a family. I just wanted to make that known in that tape that I am alive today because of my wife, that she takes care of me. And I'm almost 88 years old. In April, I will be 89. Not almost, I'm 88. And in April, if I live that long, I'll be 89 years old. And still I have my half mind, and I want to thank you for being such a wonderful wife all my life. Thank you very much, and have such a fun family.